Thank you. Great, thank you. How many of you were there for my talk earlier today? Okay, so good. Good. Part two. It's great to be with you. I used to think that TikTok was a board game. And so I never knew much about social media. You know, I was never into it. Matter of fact, the Archbishop was talking about computers being new when, and I remember when we didn't have computers too. So, but what I found out was that young people were interested in our ministry, and surprisingly so. Of those 260,000 followers we have, 60% of them are between the ages of 25 and 44. So the bulk of our followers are young people, and they're very interested in this ministry. So I said, okay, they're interested. Let's get on social media. And so I found out that a lot of our followers are young people and very interested. Another thing I found out was, but they're not kind of interested in all the heady stuff that these old people are, you know. They're, for example, one guy a young kid called me from New York, and he said, I'm struggling with my faith, and I want you to prove to me that demons really exist and this is a real thing. So I'm going to spend the next few minutes telling you what I told him. And because he seemed to respond to that. So he wanted to see some more concrete proof of the reality of the spiritual warfare, which I'm glad to do. Now, obviously, you can't prove spiritual things using the five senses. But this will show you a little bit more than you might have seen before. Now, it might be a little bit difficult. It's too bad the sun is still up because these are going to be hard to see. I'm going to show you some photos. I'm a bit of a photo guy. So I'm going to show you a bunch of photos. They're all anonymous. And I have their permission. You remember when I said today that the basic fight for all of us is, who do you belong to? Do you belong to Jesus or do you belong to the dark world? You know, and remember what I said, that in a baptism, we hold up the cross and we say, I claim you for Christ our Savior by the sign of his cross. We claim you for Jesus. And part of an exorcism is we have the person confess their faith in Jesus and to reject Satan. So they renew their baptismal vows. And remember I said, now I don't know if you can see it, the problem is it's awfully light. I'm sorry you can't see it better. This is someone's neck, by the way. Do you see that? It's a little bit blurry. This possessed person had this upside down cross scratched on their neck. And Satan is basically claiming the person. This person belongs to me, and I'm basically tattooing the person. Now, one of the ways you know the marks are preternatural is there's no explanation for it, number one. And number two, they disappear within hours. This normally take a couple of weeks to heal. It's gone by, a few hours later. So you say, well, that's impossible. Yeah, it's impossible. Welcome to our world. It's demonic. So Satan was claiming the person, and then the person says, no, I belong to Jesus, and then the fight starts. So there was that upside down cross, very common among the possessed for these sorts of things to show up. And that's one of the ways, by the way, I hope you don't, but if you came to our center and said you were possessed, I'm going to ask you a question like that. Do you have any unusual scratches, bruises, things you wake up and you say, well, how did I get that? I don't have a cat, yet I got the scratch marks on my arm. Yeah, so there's one. He seemed to like these sorts of things, young guy, okay. Or demons don't like exorcisms. Here we go. The night after an exorcism, person wakes up, and what they find their body. And the other sign of a preternatural scratch or a bruise or whatever is that you don't feel it. If someone did that to you, you'd feel it, right? Person didn't feel it, woke up, looked in the mirror, and said, raked over their back. Demonic scratches. So in other words, some other ones. This is very interesting. I had someone ask me if it's okay to have a pet snake. I said, well, I guess I suppose so, but I wouldn't recommend it. But anybody familiar with Kundalini yoga? In Kundalini Yoga, for example, the image is that there's a snake wrapped around the person's spine, and that as you meditate, the snake slowly rises up the spine, opens up all the chakra points, and hits your brain, and then you're enlightened. And I'm sitting there going, what part of snake around your spine did you think was a good idea? There's a lot of people who think this is a wonderful idea. I just did should follow us, by the way, on TikTok or YouTube. I just did a short video on closing the occult third eye. And in Kundalini Yoga and all this Eastern stuff, they want to open the occult third eye. The snake goes up your spine, hits your brain, you become enlightened. Well, guess what? This guy has normal eyes. Can you see this picture? He has normal eyes, but when he's manifesting, when we're praying, whatever, it turned to snake eyes. They're yellow with this little dot. And you say, well, that's impossible. Yeah, it's impossible. It's preternatural. That's another sign of a demonic presence. So snake. So if someone says to you, I want you to come into my studio and we're going to meditate and we're going to have that snake around your spine, go up the spine, and you're going to become enlightened. Bad idea. Yeah, no, it's amazing what people will do today thinking it's a great idea. Snake around your spine, bad idea. By the way, 1/3 of Americans, I bet and I know it's just as bad in Ireland, 1/3 of Americans now are involved in some form of divination. Occult stuff, tarot cards, Ouija boards. By the way, remember the movie The Exorcist? You don't remember. It was in the 70s. But you maybe saw the rerun, right? You've ever heard of the movie The Exorcist? Yeah. It's based on a real case, And the notes are available from the Jesuit who did it. Actually, the Jesuit did a good job. I got to hand to the Jesuit. Did a good job. So once in a while they rise to the occasion, Anyway, guy did a good job. Turned out this 12-year-old boy, it was a boy, not a girl, by the way, who recently died. He didn't live far from us in D.C. He was liberated, got married, had kids, worked for the government, and just died a few years ago. But he got possessed by using a Ouija board. And I had a woman very recently come to me and say, I only used a Ouija board a few times, and all of a sudden I started having demonic symptoms. How many times you got to do it? Once is enough. Yeah. He said, well, I didn't mean anything by it. Well, I don't care what you meant by it. Satan thought it was a really good idea. Yeah. So that's one of the biggest things I do right now is to warn you about these things so you don't have to come into our center later and have to throw holy water on you for 3 years trying to get rid of the demons in you. Yeah. Another one. This is going to be more difficult to see. Yeah. Basically, this woman's manifesting. That's her right eye. Both of her eyes turn completely black. The whole, where she's manifesting, the pupil, everything, the whole eye turns black. You say, well, that's not possible. No, it's not possible. It's demonic, Yeah, so sometimes people ask me, well, how can you discern the difference between someone who's possessed and just has a mental illness? I don't care how much schizophrenia you have. You're not going to be able to turn your eyes black. You can't do it. Thank you very much. And so I appreciate that. And also, the whole thing about witchcraft. I want you to know there's no such thing as good witchcraft. You're just a witch. And I don't care what your intention is. See, when you start, I'm going to throw curses and spells and stuff. And when you're not invoking the Lord, what spiritual power are you invoking? He says, well, I don't believe in Satan, that sort of thing. Well, when you start throwing spells and stuff like that, you actually are engaged with the dark world. And so this woman was a witch for quite some time. And as we'd pray over her, she would throw up this black stuff. It turned into ashes in the sink. So she kept throwing this stuff up. And another picture, she threw up this thing, another two. She threw up this brick. And just this black brick. Basically, she's throwing up the curses. She's ejecting the curses. And That's one of the ways you know the person's starting to become liberated, when they start ejecting strange things which actually come from the cursed stuff. So, for example, one person got possessed through their uncle who was into mechanics and machine stuff. Well, guess what she threw up when she was liberated? Machine tools. This just came out of her mouth. And obviously it was not in her stomach. It materializes in their mouth. And there's all sorts of strange things, nails and other things I won't mention. But again, strange stuff. Or for example, talk about the occult third eye. Had a lot of interest. I had over 150,000 views, I think, so far on that closing the occult third eye. People say, well, I'm going to meditate and I'm going to be enlightened. And so one of the signs of the occult third eye is this red dot on their forehead. Well, guess what? This possessed person had her occult third eye opened by the demons, and she had this red dot on her forehead. And as she's been liberated now. I just talked to her on the phone about a week ago, her and her dad. And the red dot went away. Red dot was always there when the occult third eye was opened and the demons were there. But once she was liberated, red dot disappears. So that's one of the ways we knew the occult third eye was closed. Yeah. There we go. This is interesting. Now, I've trimmed this thing so I don't show the whole thing because I can keep her anonymous. But have you ever see these things where, one thing about a possessed person, sometimes they will, when their occult third eye is open, they will see preternatural things. For example, they'll see what they call the shadow men. They'll see these cloaked, hovering figures with these hats and what they call the shadow men. They'll also see these orbs. Now, we've seen these orbs in a number of places, these white circular orbs, and very often in infested houses and surrounding and possessed people, I don't know why, there'll be these orbs. You see the orb right there? See, watch it, it'll move. Okay, I'll show it to you again. Watch it again. Okay, then what happens is, now you're not going to believe this, but it's true. Right after that, I get a text from the demons saying that she's ours, we're watching her. So they did the orb thing and just sent me a little text saying, we're watching her and following her. Yeah. People say you don't get texts from demons. Sure I do. I get them all. I get quite a few of them. You say that I don't believe that. Well, why wouldn't they? They used to mess with telephones and televisions and slamming doors and all sorts of things. Well, now they're sending exorcist texts. And I'm not the only guy who gets them. Lots of other exorcists have as well. So, that's enough for pictures. Oh, here's another one. This is very interesting. One of the signs of sanctity is going to be the stigmata. And we know the famous stigmatists like Padre Pio, Catherine of Siena, Rita Cassia had a mark on her forehead, the thorn. Several great, St. Francis, of course. Interesting enough, this was a possessed woman. And halfway through, she gets this demonic stigmata it was mimicking real stigmata to try to inflame her spiritual pride to make her think she was something special. She said, well, look, I got the stigmata. I said, no, the demons are doing that. She was crushed. I said, I'm sorry to tell you, it's demons. And it went away. So, I hope I didn't mean to scare you all, but and there's another thing. This woman, she had this, see what it says Mara, M-A-R-A, marked on her neck. And I'm sitting there going, what the heck is Mara? Turns out that Mara is a Hindu goddess of death or something like that. I don't know, something like that. I don't know what it is, but it's some Hindu. And we often have Eastern gods end up being demons. And so, first of all, we don't believe in the Eastern gods. There's only one God. And so when someone says, I've had several people worshiping gods, and then they were stunned when these gods turned out to be demons. Well, the Bible even says that, these pagan gods are demons, There is no Shiva or all those things. They're not. No, there's only one God. So when your friend wants you to go to the yoga studio and worship these pagan gods, you want to sit for a while and worship demons so these snake can come up your spine and enlighten you? No. And yet there are a lot of people doing it. There are a lot of people doing it. So that's kind of our cheerful 15 minutes. So other questions or comments? Karen, we have some questions? So I thought young people were interested, and you say, prove it to me. Well, that's the best I can do. But that kind of grabs your attention. Yes? Cross, yeah. 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 Yeah, okay. Well, one of the ways you know some things are demonic and they're not just, psychological or whatever, is that their demonic response to prayer. Some people say, I have these symptoms, and are they psychological or mental, or are they spiritual and demonic? I say, well, pray over them and see what happens. If you pray over them and they just disappear in response to prayer, then it's probably a spiritual thing. Or, how do I know I have demons? Sometimes, for example, I was praying over a woman last week. We sprinkled some holy water on her, as I mentioned to you, and she started screaming, thought she was burning her. Well, it was tap water. But the demons, for them, it feels like it's burning. Yeah. Okay. Besides the rosary, what is the next best devotional to pray? The most important thing I could tell you to do, besides going to Mass, of course, and receiving the communion, is to go to confession. Now, if you have not been to confession, I would recommend the pious go to confession once a month. I go every week. I recommend you go every month. As Father Gabriel Amorth said, a famous exorcist, one good confession is worth 50 exorcisms. Go to confession. I won't see you until you've first gone to confession, and that'll take care of most of the problems. Go to confession regularly. Keeps the demons away, and that's a beautiful sacrament. So go to confession. If you're not possessed, present the sacraments weekly. Okay. Well, the question comes, I can do all these spiritual things, but I still experience some demonic affliction. Well, then the question that comes is a question of discernment. Do you really have a spiritual problem, or is it more psychological? And then if it really is discerned that you have a spiritual problem, then you should go through some deliverance prayers. Now, the good news is most people are not possessed who have demons. A small percentage are truly possessed and need an exorcism. Most of the people who have demonic afflictions, some deliverance prayers are plenty. Usually about 5-7 sessions, deliverance prayers, and any priest can do those with you, or you can attend our online sessions, which I encourage you. So it's just some simple deliverance prayers, and I'll do some tonight at 8, just very simple prayers of liberation, and they're usually very effective. So maybe. What would you say to someone who doesn't believe in hell? There's a guy, and that probably should be the last one. I think, Mars, I think we probably have to end now, don't we? Yeah. Oh, one more? That one, okay. What if you don't believe in hell? There was a young man who was living a sinful life, and he said to Padre Pio, I don't believe in hell. And Padre Pio says, you will when you get there. No, I as I said earlier today, the thing it happens to you in an exorcism, whatever, is you learn by experience all the things the church teaches you. I want you to know everything the church teaches you is true. And if you don't believe something, it's you. It's you. It reminds me of the story of a guy who's driving down the highway, and his wife calls him, the old guy. And he says, Harry, I'm just watching the television, and there's some crazy guy driving the wrong way on the highway. So be careful. He says, Margaret, I know exactly what you mean, but there are hundreds of them. Yeah. So there is a hell. Jesus said so. The church says so. Bible says so. Very clear about that, by the way. And also, of course, I love to read the lives of saints. If you're not reading the lives of the great saints, you really should. John of the Cross, Catherine of Siena, Teresa of Avila, all those great saints. The Lord gives these people to us to guide us. And read what St. Catherine of Siena experienced hell. St. Teresa of Avila, her experience of hell. Padre Pio, his experience of hell. Now again, these are not de fide, but they're very much in line with what Jesus says. Jesus said it. It's in the Bible. And all the saints and mystics experience exactly the same thing. So if all these people say this and you don't believe in it, who's got the problem? You know, see what I mean? So I want you to, you're not that brilliant. I'm sorry to tell you. Yeah, you did. That's why you need to trust the church and trust 2,000 years of tradition and experience, because it knows a lot more than we do. Yeah. One more. Yeah, well, these church sacramentals. Basically, the church gives us sacramentals to give us grace, actual graces. So, you know, the rosary is a sacramental. The crucifix on the wall is a sacramental. Holy water, a blessed oil, and salt. Yeah, they're all sacramentals. The priest can bless them. And yeah, I spray holy water around my room before I go to bed at night because of my job, and yeah, so it's good stuff. So, in your homes, put a crucifix over your bed. You know, it makes a big difference. You notice it as an exorcism. Ecce crucem domini fugit parte adversa. You say, "Behold the cross of the Lord," and the demons scream. You say, "Oh, this is effective." Put it on the wall. Throw holy water on them. They start screaming. What does St. Teresa of Avila say about holy water? It does two things. I've noticed that it brings a notable consolation and it casts out the demons. Well, if she said it, the church says it, I think I'll use it. Great. So I hope I didn't do whatever wrong. But it's nice to be with you. Keep the faith. Jesus is Lord, and he gives us his joy and peace. So thanks.
Thank you, Msgr Stephen. Thank you.